Hi guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mid-Trap podcast. How you doing this week, Mike?
I'm really excited. I thought that came out great, talking with Andrews and Wilson, two great guys. And we have to give them a shout out. If you haven't checked out their website, andrews-wilson.com, they've got some awesome merch. And being the great dudes that they are, they sent us each an Andrew and Wilson's hat, mug, and a Sons of Valor t-shirt. So
they're pretty sick.
Awesome.
They're pretty sick.
Yeah, pretty sick merch. Check them out. If you didn't hear our interview last week, episode 70, it was a great one. Really great to talk to them. Great guys.
Yes, awesome to talk to them.
You know, Chris, since we're wrapping up a book, I do like to share my thoughts.
Yes.
In the form of a limerick.
Give it to me.
All right, here we go. Many say that rap is the last man you'd want to cross in Afghanistan. If only right now we had that man, boots on the ground, with a plan. Hurley's candle has burned, and Louis Gould has returned. McReevers we lose, a toast with some booze, to a full life, soon adjourned.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
That was a really good one, Mike.
Appreciate it.
You really sent Vince out with that one.
Thanks,
right
man.
there. Really heartfelt.
I poured one out for him.
I still think, we're going to have to put all these together in some sort of limerick anthology and sell it or give it away for free. But
we'll make an NFT, put it on the digital market space.
Or there you go. We have our first Mid-Trap Pod NFT. That'd be awesome. Who the hell's going to buy that?
People are buying crazy shit online.
True.
People are buying like pixelated rocks or something stupid for like $1,000. Who knows?
No. Hey, we could become millionaires. Or at least thousandaires.
Crypto millionaires.
Crypto. Get that Ethereum.
Tweet at us your favorite
or the
coin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge,
Can we start a Mitch coin?
Mitch coin. Ooh, I'd be more of a Kennedy coin. Irene coin.
Or no. It's got to be a Marcus coin or a Dumont coin.
Absolutely. That one will go to the moon.
Go to the moon.
To the moon.
Robbing some banks along the way.
I got some money in crypto. I should probably monitor that, see what's going on. And when I say some money, I'm talking about like $50.
You have 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin?
Major investment over here for this public school teacher salary, all right?
You're just gonna let it ride. Let it ride.
To the moon, baby. All that from a limerick.
All that from one limerick. We're gonna have to, just like we did a Stansfield episode, we're gonna have to do a Hurley episode.
Yeah.
After his time comes in the Survivor, but I don't know. I did enjoy this chapter a lot. Like you said, it was just nice to spend time with these four characters a little bit more at ease.
Did you hear Mitch say the first time he saw Hurley since the diagnosis, he almost wanted to get up and hug him?
Yeah, he did say that.
Again, this out of character changing rap post concussion, like the fact that he had that impulse to want to go hug Hurley, like.
But then he says something tells me I'm not a hugger, right? Or like he doesn't. Someone doesn't like to be touched.
Yeah, his natural instinct is like, no, repress that, get rid of it.
Yeah,
it's just so different. Like again, you remember I was gushing over this Consent to Kill epilogue. That is my favorite scene of rap. All writing of Vince. I still to this day say the epilogue of Consent to Kill is my favorite scene Vince ever wrote. But this one is almost going pound for pound with that in terms of the emotional punch. And Hurley saying this, offering this toast, 2 books after American Assassin. Like, we just read American Assassin. We just read Killshot.
Right.
We were so bought into him, but we know this is what, 20 plus years later? 4 years since Consent to Kill. So we're definitely over 20 years from American Assassin. I think Rapp should be in his mid-40s.
Rapp says he's in. So it was interesting that a lot of times we don't get definitive timelines in these books, but they say multiple times it's been 4 years since Anna's death. Scott is almost 50. Like that's a reference. Like Scott is pushing close to 50, which I thought was interesting. Rapp says Hurley is in his either late 70s or early 80s. And when Mitch brings up Scott's, he says that he's a little bit younger than him. So I think he's in his early to mid 40s. So yeah, it's 20 years since Consent to Kill.
Oh, yeah. And we're losing Hurley and we're losing Vince.
It's very sad. It's a good book. It's a really good book.
It's just it's a tribute. I mean, it's just it's his swan song. It's beautiful. Chris, I don't want to jump ahead because we've got a little bit more of this story to tell, but I'm going to rate this one really, really, really high. And the scenes we just went over are the reason why. This is really high up my list. I'm going to give it to you at the end of this episode. Don't be surprised if it's in my top 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, we just have to kind of round out the story here. We've got a couple other storylines that we haven't even gotten into. That's how packed it is. It's a pretty short book, too, is it not? So much happens.
It's only 59 chapters.
Right.
And I think on the audiobook it's only like 10 and a half hours. So it's not like Consent to Kill. Hell no.
I feel like so much happens though.
Oh, it's jam-packed.
This is a tight book.
It is.
This is a really tight, just well-structured and executed book.
Not a single word is unnecessary.
Right. The economy of language.
Every very, very economical. Yeah. Whereas some other books are just like, they're good, but I don't know. I keep coming back to what's our least favorite book? Pursuit of Honor or Executive Power. Executive Power.
Maybe like, Executive Power
is up there too.
Yeah, that's true. They're the bottom dwellers.
The bottom two. There are Thor Dark World or
that's right. That's right.
Iron Man.
We've been through this though. We still love them. We will still read them. We still recommend them if you're doing a read through of the series. Of course. But they're not the strongest.
Of course.
It's wild because, like I said earlier, I usually offer as a critique too many characters, jumbling the storylines and the plot. But that doesn't happen here. And we still get so many characters mentioned, but they play a purpose. I'm just thinking of the CIA, right? When Kennedy's in her meetings or when Kennedy's in her office, there's this Brad Stouffer, who is deputy director of something or other, but he's the one who picks up on the Sitting Bull, which I mentioned earlier, this little leak that Rickman gives in the interrogation video to up the ante a little bit. So you got that guy. He's advising Kennedy, gives her a call. And then you have an assistant, this guy named Eugene. I think he gives Kennedy her phone and says, like, somebody's calling or whatever. I'm like, why is this Eugene kid mentioned twice? Her personal assistant. And then at one point, Betty Warner comes in. But Betty Warner was Kennedy's PR person, her public relations person, who's kind of keeping her in check, saying, like, you also have to be aware that the CIA needs good press, that this is a shitstorm, and part of your role as director is putting a spin on things in the public eye. You know, we got to get a hold of that. And then there's Schliemann, who's in a couple of these meetings. And I don't know if any of these people are ever mentioned again, but what they do for me is show Kennedy's leadership. Her ability to use her people and put them in the right places, it works. All of these name drops, they show the complexity of the CIA, its daily operations, and Kennedy's job. And I'm also like, maybe it's a breadcrumb of where Vince wants to go. Who's to say that Eugene doesn't, or in Vince's mind, wouldn't crop up in 3 books? What happens to Kennedy's personal assistant who saw her papers? or heard her conversations. Or Betty Warner, her PR person, who maybe turns on her. 3 stories from now, Betty Warner thinks Kennedy isn't doing a good enough job in front of camera and starts trying to shake things up. Like, are these name drops maybe also Vince knowing he maybe doesn't have many books left to write, including people or characters that he's kind of thought about tangentially and could maybe plant some seeds of what can grow in future books? Either way, it worked, and it didn't muddy things. A bunch of name drops, where usually I see that as a problem. Here, I think it's just adding to the story and the texture of this environment, this operating environment. But yeah, I mean, that leads to the FBI. We even get more characters piled on. We've had the State Department, we've had the CIA, and now we also have more characters in the FBI.
Because I think, like you said in the beginning, it's very real, like how this would actually happen, like that. All these people coming into her office, that's exactly how it would work. You wouldn't, I don't know, sometimes I like to think about this in terms of like a movie or a TV show. You would have these people, you would cast like some, not a big name actor, but you would have them just come in, and you may not get their name, like they would have a credit, but that's what you would see. But oftentimes in books, we, just the words are given to more important characters. Right. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. But yeah, so this whole FBI thing, another element to Rickman's plot where he knows he needs to sow some seeds. Mitch and Rickman were taking money, and I was wondering, why did he want to do that to himself? Because he knew that he was going to die. He's dead. He's dead. He doesn't matter. He just wants to make the CIA look bad, right? Makes it seem that this Swiss banker, Olbrecht, who happens to be Louis' handler and personal financier, set up these bank accounts. Also set up a bank account for Ashan,
the Pakistani.
So, and I'm guessing that's something that Durrani had him
to implicate him in all this as well.
To implicate him, and feeds it to a United States senator who he knows will feed it to someone in the FBI who is super eager. We get this character, Joel Wilson, kind of a puss. I feel bad for him at times because he was just given this information and but he should have known to run it up the command. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess I shouldn't say feel bad for him because he is a misogynistic asshole. Like that whole side thing with him, hinting at sexually molesting or at least sexually harassing
Sydney Hayek at work.
So
yeah,
Sydney
she used
Hayek.
to work for him.
All right, I don't feel bad for him anymore. He's a puss. But yeah,
but I think hold on. When we first met him, I almost in my mind go, oh, he might be the good guy at the FBI who will be able to liaise with the CIA like a Skip McMahon, because it says a line like he wanted to cut through the red tape. He didn't like the superiors in the organization holding back him investigating and getting the job done. And so I was like, all right, hooray. Like somebody who's going to do whatever it takes to, be our law enforcement. So I kind of see where you're coming from with the sympathy. And then when we learn he is a misogynistic asshole, I think Vince maybe wanted to toy with you, the reader, a little bit like, who is this guy? But then that helps paint the picture that, he gonna do something bad.
And he had so many chances to get out of it. Even at the very end when Kennedy comes in and he's with all of his bosses and they're like, you should have, first of all, you get this from an anonymous source that you get a private meeting with a Swiss banker. You didn't think to go talk to our finance people. Yep. They would have told you this is weird.
Yep.
Swiss bankers don't just talk to people.
Yep. And they don't give up.
They don't just let you
clients.
Give up. No, that's why people use the Swiss banks.
Right. You're being played. It's disinformation campaign.
It's like something the Russians would do.
His ego, like Stan says.
His ego got to him. Yeah.
Right. But his ego gets in the way of all that.
Kennedy comes into the meeting, lays the smackdown, shows him his NDA. that he was not supposed to be doing this stuff, and it potentially could be treasonous, to stand down, yet he continues to go to Senator Fisk. What did you think about, while we're talking about him, at the very end, Kennedy flips Fisk and like puts him in her pocket.
Ferris.
At the very end. Ferris. I like that.
It's another one of these G moves by Kennedy. Like, she pulls the ace card. So she pulls the ace card with Louis Gould. We didn't talk about that earlier when she says, I've actually been in contact with Claudia this whole time over these last 4 years. So she takes Louis, who is kind of antagonizing her and the CIA, saying, you can't hold me. What do you want with me? I have nothing to do with this. And she has a trump card. And then with Joel Wilson, when the director of the FBI is chewing out Wilson and he doesn't get it, he's like, no, you're corrupt too. CIA's corrupt. Leadership at the FBI is corrupt. I have the evidence. I have a senator on my side. Just think, I'm going to expose this. I'm going to have a congressional hearing. Yada, yada, yada. Well, Kennedy, again, pulls the ace card. She goes, you're actually breaking the law. Not to mention, when you went to Afghanistan and you tried to get involved with an investigation, you also didn't follow the protocols of checking in and registering with the right people. So you probably broke some other national security laws by trying to investigate the U.S. military on their property without proper protocols being followed. And now she's pulling the ace card on the senator, saying, how can you, as a senator of the United States, supposed to faithfully execute the laws, be disclosing all this information to a low-level FBI guy? Like, this is a complete screw-up on all levels, and all these people thought they were so secure in what they were doing, and all it takes is the mind of Irene Kennedy, to go toe-to-toe with them. And now he's working for her. And she says, Senator, you have two options. You can go out there in the committee room, and you could be very pro-CIA, and you can vote, and you can propose legislation that lets the CIA do their business, and guess who else is in the car? Mitch Rapp. And I think Mitch Rapp turns around and says, or I'll show up in the middle of the night.
Well, no, the second option is you can go to jail.
You go to
the
jail.
Third option,
He's the third option.
Exactly. Mitch bringing back in that third option. Mitch leans in, I think, as they're walking out of the limos, like, or the third option is I slit your fucking throat
In the middle of the night.
I kill you.
Yep.
In the middle of the night. I come pay you a visit.
Yep.
That was awesome.
Yep. She turned him. She turned a sitting U.S. senator who thought he had information to bring down the CIA, and Kennedy makes him an agent. Like, that's awesome.
You have to think, like, all right, pretend this information was given to, I don't know, let's say the New York Times or the Washington Post. Like, what sort of investigation would they have done to prove this anonymous source information? They wouldn't have just run it on the front page, Well,
nowadays,
which is essential. Oh yeah,
I mean, old school journalism. Heck no.
You would have hoped. You would have
tanked a media organization in the 80s and the 90s. Like, it would have tanked if you ran information that turned out to be unverified, that turned out to be false. And
I guess you're right. Nowadays,
it would have ruined your reputation. Now, as long as it gets you the clicks, you're making money.
Yeah, they don't care.
You're making money.
I'm just thinking of like a Woodward and Bernstein type investigation. They would have done a better job than Joel Wilson in figuring this out. I think
that's how Joe Wilson sees himself, though. Like, he's going to be that guy who does that level of investigation, analysis, and reporting, and he's going to basically take over the FBI by proving that he's so good at this. And, he's a dirtbag. The way he even talks to Hargraves and his boss, not the director of the FBI, but his mid-level boss, Hargraves tells him, stand down. You can't act this fast. And Hargraves even gives him a chance and says, look, I'll let you follow up some of these leads. Go to Afghanistan, follow proper protocol, check in with me every day. Phone call every single day to tell me how it's going. And Wilson blows that off too. So he's so blinded by his ego. It's unbelievable.
Yes, it is. Well, one thing we haven't really touched on yet is Durrani and Sean.
Mm-hmm.
So we meet them at the very beginning. They're talking about, obviously, Rickman being taken. Ashan seems to be more pro-American. He has a relationship with, or pro-America, has a relationship with Irene. He suspects that Durrani had something to do with this. And I like, Vince always tries to weave in current affairs, and they talk a lot about how the ISI potentially played a role in harboring
Bin Laden.
In
and
Laden,
Durrani,
right?
too.
And
set it up.
And Durrani set it up. And I love those little like real world tidbits that Vince puts in. And Ashan calls him on. Durrani's like, no, I didn't do this. And then lo and behold, Durrani was the one who was directly involved with taking Rickman. And Ashan, again, is a good guy, I guess you would say. And
right.
He takes the fall because of what Durrani does. And then we get that scene at the very end where Irene comes.
Yes.
And she lays the hammer again. She lays down multiple hammers with the director of the ISI, Durrani, Ashan, some other guys there, and doesn't call out Durrani. Doesn't say, like, even though she knows, because they figured it out because his guy defected in Zurich.
Yeah, that general.
Qasim. But begins to lay out this evidence and then shows Taj the picture. So what do those men look like? What ethnicity would you say they are? And he's like, Pakistani. Yep. Why would 4 Pakistani men in a car be doing in Zurich?
After this banker who apparently funded Rapp and Rickman and embezzled millions from the CIA and stole it. Why would 4 Pakistani dudes be looking into it? And why is Ashan, one of your men in the ISI, why is his name also on the accounts?
Exactly. So, this is all a deep, lies upon lies. Something that the Russians would do, as Hurley would say.
So I pulled the quote when Kennedy lays the smackdown. We talked about all the other times she dropped the hammer so far in this book. Well, here's another one. She says to the director of the ISI, Durrani, Ashan, all these guys. Think of a woman, right? Just going into this high-level meeting with the Pakistani leadership. And she says, quote, "When I find out who was behind it, I will make them pay dearly. It might not happen immediately, but eventually, people will disappear. They will pay for this little gambit with their lives, and I will make it my goal in life to penetrate this organization and steal everything that is valuable. And when I'm done, I will leave behind so much disinformation that it will sow seeds of dissent for decades to come. This organization will cease to be effective. It will be an organization afraid of its own shadows, and don't doubt me for a second. I have the budget, the fortitude, and the talent to make this happen. So you can tell your cohorts, like General Durrani, that this is their last chance. I want Joe Rickman back, and I want him back in the next 24 hours, or this is going to get extremely uncomfortable for everyone." Imagine these men in Pakistan hearing that from a woman in their office on their turf. Love it. Absolutely love it.
She lays the smackdown.
That she does.
So I guess the last thing we have to talk about is finishing up how Rapp figures it out. So we mentioned that scene in the Shenandoah where they're all talking, and Rapp his memory slowly coming back, and then we go to another scene where they're all at the CIA headquarters and they're talking about, all right, they're relieved, everything's fine, but Rapp begins to doubt himself, and he finally says, like, something's not right, and this is what puts it into place, everything. And then they dig deeper into this banker, Ulbrich, and they finally decide, after talking with Gould, because they get information from Gould a little bit, and then him and Hurley go over to Switzerland. I love these scenes where, like, the 4 of them, I think Hurley, Mitch, Hayek, and Dumond are in the car, and Dumond is, like, trying to crack into this banker's. We never, like, understand, like, why this banker had such high security. I guess because he's doing some bad. I wonder if that's like touched upon
in the
later
Survivor.
In the Survivor.
I mean, Durrani is doing everything for him, so he's got an entire nation state. This banker, essentially,
true,
to protect them, and we know the ISI probably has other foreign connections as well. So,
right. So Stan and Mitch go to see this banker, and Hurley has the bright idea, which this quote comes from. He keeps on like asking Mitch, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and Mitch doesn't want him to do it. He's like, I got 6 months to live. I got 6 months to live. He keeps bringing that up. He's like, we're all dying. Some of us faster than others. Like, who cares, you know? He's just like, I'm just going to knock on the door and see if this guy can give me some information.
Right. Or he wants to spook him into making a phone call
exactly
that Marcus can listen to. Or who Obrecht calls when he's a little spooked. Because this guy from Interpol, who's Hurley is posing as, knocks on his door and says, hey, I'd like to talk to Obrecht about some, issues Interpol is looking into. Well, once Obrecht's guards pass that up to him, who's Obrecht's first call? Whoever he's masterminding this plot with, or his contact.
Right.
And then Marcus can listen in.
But while they're there, who do they see but a car full of Pakistanis? Yep.
And that's when they get Qasim.
And that's when they get Qasim, which allows them to, he becomes a defector. They then trek through, come in a back alley through the Pakistani border, ascend on Durrani's compound.
Marcus launches the drone,
and Mitch takes Rickman out. First his dog.
First the dog, right.
And then he takes Rickman out.
Right, he wants Rickman to see the dog die.
And this is going to be the guy that haunts Mitch from the grave.
Well, that's Kyle's genius.
Mitch should have let him live. Should have brought him back.
Well, we're going to see what Kyle does with the story, but Kyle basically has a lot to work with here, right? You've got Kennedy, who just blackmailed into Senator Ferris. So Senator Ferris has to be on her side. Got all that stuff going on. And then Kennedy also at the end says, what should we do now that we have Louis Gould? Yet we also have information that this banker Obrecht was involved. We brought down Durrani. He was one piece of the puzzle that we kind of, we closed that loop. And we killed Rickman, so Rickman can't spill any more of his secrets. Well, Kyle realizes Rickman was so smart with these insurance policies. And he even says to Durrani, you can't backstab me. I've got a string of lawyers out there. If I don't check in with them at prearranged times, they're going to put in the public and send to the media these secret files that I've arranged, kind of like Stansfield, always having your secret files. If Rickman is dead, those files get released, and the public will learn all of these secrets that Rickman has. Rapp doesn't know that. And Rapp kills him. And how smart it is, Kyle, to take that one line from Vince, and that's going to play out in the Survivor. Love that. Because Rickman can't make his prearranged check-in time with his lawyers. He says he's got a system that automatically the lawyers will release this information, and
we'll release it.
That's part 2 of the story, thanks to Kyle.
It's set up pretty well. Yeah. I get the one thing we didn't mention was Mike Nash.
Right.
Comes back in this book.
Right. He gives some oversight at the vet in Afghanistan. I think he brings in a QRF team, or he's organizing, the support to get Rapp and Coleman and Louis off the roof. And Mick Reaver. Oh, and Kennedy says, I want Mick Reaver's body back. That's a threat to the Pakistanis. She does say, or to everybody, even the Taliban. She says, I'm getting Mick Reaver's back.
Yeah, and there's this interesting play between him and Irene and him and Mitch, where it's like a continuation of the feelings they had for him in the last time we saw him in not Extreme Measures, but what's the follow-up to Extreme Measures?
Pursuit of Honor.
Okay. So where, he doesn't want to do what Mitch wants, all this killing and stuff like that. So Vince is continuing on this path with him, and he's now a higher up. He's in the politics. Right. There's even like this weird exchange between him and Irene,
right,
in the hospital, where she asks him to do something, and because he doesn't like respond right away, or he thinks that's too brash, he questions her. She's like, fine, and turns around and goes to Scott, and Scott like, yes ma'am,
right,
I'll get on it right away.
Kennedy wants Nash once they found out about Joel Wilson, and Joe Wilson at the hospital tried pulling his weight and saying, I'm going to investigate the CIA. I know you guys have been stealing, embezzling the reintegration money. I know you guys have been taking it yourselves, giving it to the Taliban. Kennedy's very fishy with this Wilson. And she asks Nash, can you look into it? And Nash kind of says, well, that's the FBI. We can't, spy on the FBI. And she goes, I'm ordering you to do this. I did not want you to question my orders. And Nash says a second time, I don't think that's something we can do. Have we taken it to the president, or have we taken it to whomever? And that's when Kennedy's like, I'm done with you. She literally sidelines Nash. She completely pushes him out of the picture, turns to Scott and says, can you bug Wilson? He goes, done. And just a few chapters later, it's pretty genius. And it's a nod to term limits. Scott goes to a back alley, actually in Aurora Highlands. Aurora Highlands, right in Pentagon City, where you didn't live in that apartment, did you? I was in that apartment with Tom. That's where Joel Wilson lives, and that's where he meets secretly in an SUV with Senator Ferris.
Feeding the dog sedative.
The treats.
That's a total nod to term limits. It's a
nod to term limits. He knocks out the dog, and while the dog is eating his treats, he puts a bug on his collar. He bugs his collar so he can listen to all the conversations he has with Ferris. And Nash wasn't willing to do it, and Nash didn't have that in him, and Nash wanted to get permission and, make sure it's documented. And we've seen that Nash has transitioned to the bureaucratic, safe life, which was necessary to protect his family, right? After Pursuit of Honor, his family was kidnapped, right? Directly in jeopardy. One of his kids, Mitch basically says we can't involve him in the same shit you involve me in and you call Scott into. And Kennedy here straight up sidelines Nash. She's kind of upset with him.
Yeah, he pretty much gets relegated the rest of the book. I think he's in charge of interrogating Gould a little bit. She tells him to leave when she comes in. She very much sidelines him. We don't really see him at all. And I want to pick up on where this is going in the next couple books to see
right,
because I want to know where Mike Nash is. I want to know where he is.
I honestly forget what Kyle does with Mike Nash in his first 3 or 4 books. So I wonder if Kyle picked up on what Vince did here, because we've talked about how Vince was so intentional in this book in so many different things that either he closed the loop on, bringing Louis in, bringing Doc Lewis, bringing Hurley back. This was kind of a loose end where, is he really, Vince, closing the loop by saying Nash and Kennedy are not going to see eye to eye moving forward? Mm-hmm. Is this something where he says Rapp and Nash really don't work well on ops together? Because I think even one point, Rapp even says, what about Nash? And Kennedy's like, he's not involved in this or something. So I wonder, is that another breadcrumb from Vince of where he saw Mike Nash's relationship with Kennedy, Rapp, and the CIA going? I don't remember if Kyle dives into that in The Survivor or in Order to Kill or Enemy of the State.
Yeah, I'll need to, because then he's not brought back up in.
Is he in Red?
His wife?
Yeah, he's not really.
His wife is brought up in Total Power.
That's right.
And he's not brought up in Lethal Agent, I don't think. So yeah, I want to. When we reread these, let's see what happens to Mike Nash, because I want to know where he.
You're right, though.
Is.
Maggie is living in Manassas in Total Power. She's at one of the
with the compound.
And Skip is at the compound too, right?
Yeah, Skip is too.
So we know Skip and Maggie Nash are still somewhere in the universe of Kyle Mills.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's that time. Winners and losers, baby. Who's your winner, Mike?
Man. There's only one winner of this book, and it is Vince fucking Flynn.
That's a good one.
I can't get over what he pulled off in this book. It's so different, right?
It's very different. It's a very different book, I think.
How it is not. I don't know if I read
It's
this.
not very action-y.
I don't know.
It's not very
yeah.
like...
I don't know if I would have said this is a Vince Flynn book if you gave it to me with no author on it. I'm like, that is a fucking killer Mitch Rapp story. There was just a few things that I wasn't sure were Vince, but it's because he went to another level. He was on another plane. He was beyond Vince Flynn. He was Vince Flynning Vince Flynn. Like, that's how good it was in what he was doing and pulling together. It's just off the charts. It's something bold. It has some statements in it. We've talked about a lot of them here on the podcast. And it just makes me want to tip my hat to him all the more and what he was able to pull. God damn it. This book means so much to me. I forgot it. Like, if you asked me before we started this podcast, what are your top 5 favorite Mitch Rapp books? I honestly don't know if I would have mentioned this one. And thanks to this podcast and what you and I are doing together, this is my second favorite Mitch Rapp book. I'm saying it. It is so freaking good. It was amazing. Just what Vince was able to pull off. You are the man. You are the winner of this book. To a full life.
To a full life.
How about for you, Chris? What's the winner?
Yeah, I also had Vince Flynn. It's got to be. But if I had to, do a little bit of parody for the podcast to be different than you, I'd have to say Irene. We see a different level of Irene because we've seen a couple books now where she hasn't really either been there, or we saw a deep dive into her when she got taken and then she sort of got sidelined. And then we saw her backstory. I don't know. But in this one, we sort of get a different view of her. I guess Mitch is the main character of this book, but Irene takes a very central role. And we might even spend more chapters with her because Mitch is in the hospital. I don't know. And just like the scenes with her and watching the interrogation footage and being in her mind and how she thinks and how she actually cares about her people. And then just the badassery, like laying the smackdown to Wilson, the smackdown to the ISI, the smackdown to Gould, and the smackdown to Nash, and the smackdown to Mitch and Hurley. Like she's, I am in charge.
Yeah.
Like, remember that. Not you, not him, me. What I say goes.
Right.
I don't know. I thought she was great in this book, and so she's my winner.
I 100% agree.
But Vince is definitely the winner because this book is amazing. It's all right. You said top 2. It's top 3 for me.
Okay,
it's top 3 for me.
I know. Consent to Kill for you is up in the top 3, which most everybody would agree with. So that makes sense.
I love Consent to Kill. I can't
right.
I can't rate this book higher than Consent to Kill.
Right. This book is so it's intellectual. Like you said, the way we were inside Kennedy's mind. I would say this is the most academic or intellectual book Vince wrote.
Yes.
So, a masterpiece.
So wait, what's your top book?
Memorial Day. Yeah. I was actually almost, maybe it's just the emotion of reading this book and knowing it's the last one from Vince that we'll get to cover on this podcast. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. Just I'm living it right now and loving every moment of it. But I almost wanted to put this tied for first. Memorial Day does, I think, something a cut above in terms of the action. So I kept that one up there. But this is an A+. This is up there.
Yes.
Any losers though, we have to do our due diligence and just, if it has to be said, it has to be said. What would you nitpick if you had to find something here?
Ooh, that's hard. It's such a complete
I do
book.
have one.
All right, well, give it to me while I think.
And I'm curious if you'll agree with this. And it's not the characters. Usually that's my thing I say at this part. Cue Martini going off about too many characters jumbling the story. Nope, not at all. This one is, I think there's a major inconsistency in terms of the arc of the entire Rapp saga. And that is when Rapp's persona, Mr. Cox, at the hospital, actually fools everyone there. They don't recognize who Rapp is, and they think they're treating some patient named Mr. Cox. There's a doctor who's like, I don't need to know more. I know some secret stuff goes on in this hospital, because they're at Bagram. So I don't need to know who you are. But it's fucking Mitch Rapp. Like, separation of power happened. Like, we can't forget he was plastered all over the news. His face was out there. His name was out there. And his story was out there. So I think generationally, we're maybe removed where, some enlisted, younger people maybe weren't alive at that time. We are almost 20 years later from American Assassin. But separation of power happened. Rapp is in the history books. He was on the newspapers. Some people in that hospital would have known who he was, particularly a doctor, or particularly this Sheila lady. Remember Sheila Jackson at the hospital, who that's her hospital? She was a great character. She lays the smackdown on Joe Wilson, says, "Get the hell out of here. Are you messing with my patients? You don't go anywhere near Mr. Cox." And she actually works with Kennedy. And Kennedy says, "If you ever need anything, or if you see that guy again, give me a call." Awesome character. But how does she not recognize Rapp? Like, did we just forget that separation of power happened? So that's my only thing. It made me want the Mitch Cruz days back, where Mitch Cruz was this guy in the shadows. Mitch Cruz was this nobody.
Exactly.
He was this mysterious figure. How do you have that when Rapp has been outed?
Especially people in the military personnel.
Right.
Because there's other people in the military who, and even, I don't know, you read a story about that guy and you're not going to forget him.
You don't forget it. Exactly. You might not remember the picture, but you remember the story. And I feel like Rapp's name should spread like wildfire, and people would know it forever.
Yeah, that's a nit to pick, but yeah, I don't really have anything, actually. Honestly, I don't have anything. That's bad critiquing on my part, but I was going to say, like, the FBI plot is, like, sort of the weakest, but it had its points, and, it added some elements to it, and it was different character nuances. I guess the fact that we don't ever see Hayek again, that's a loser. I would like to see
That's true.
more
I did like Sidney Hayek quite a bit. Are you sure Kyle doesn't run with her? Because she would have been a great character to pick up.
I don't think so.
Kyle does create that B.B. Kincaid in the first chapter of The Survivor, so that's kind of his own spin on a new female character. Well, here's one that I think you convinced me on, going from a loser to a winner. I almost was going to say the memory loss and Rapp going unconscious was slipping into one of my losers. I was wondering if it was misplaced or if there was a reason for it. But I think you convinced me that it's a signal of a new phase for Rapp. It's a signal of a moving on, a rebuilding, and this book being so heavy needed a little comic relief. And the fact that Sidney Hayek and this very loopy Rapp with no memory could have this banter, I think I really like that now. So I'm going to take that off my loser list and say no losers for this one.
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe, and like I said, I could just be completely making it up in my head, but to me, it felt like it was just a literary tool to allow Vince to write him differently in the future.
Yeah, which is fair, because it could happen. He literally ripped a Formica countertop off the vet's office, hid behind it, used it as a shield with a concussive blast, pretty much blowing out the first floor and killing all these guys with riot shields. So it makes sense that Rapp's going to take some damage there.
Like, he's still the same Mitch Rapp, but he definitely thinks about the death of his wife differently. Right. And it's like, oh, did I act like that? Oh, shit. And just, It
allows him to start fresh.
We see him changed, obviously, with Kyle's writing. So.
And Kyle, I think, was attuned to that well and wanted to find creative, unknown ways that Rapp is affected and how Rapp can grow and change. And that memory loss scene, gives license to that. It's like Vince giving creative license for Kyle to do that to Rapp. So I like it.
Yeah, I think this will be a huge part of our next book, but Kyle has done a great job picking up, especially not from the entire series, but definitely from The Last Man, like studying it meticulously in order to have it as a jumping off point and nail the Survivor.
Right.
So I'm excited to get into that book next month.
Absolutely.
Or 2 months, because we got Enemy of the Gates in between. But.
True, we are going to take a break in September from our regular reading list and bring you our breakdown of the newest book, so don't forget that. Before, however, we do any of that, we do have to wrap up The Last Man with perhaps some people's favorite and certainly the most controversial topic on Mitch Rap Pod, and that is the covers.
The covers.
Judge a book by its cover. Judge a cover by the book? Ooh, there's our segment title.
Judge a cover by the book.
Judge a cover by the book.
There you go.
That's it. Oh, man. Why did it take us 71 episodes to get to that?
I don't know.
Give it to us, Chris. What do you like here? What's the rundown?
All right. So I have to go. The one I personally have is A, which is the red, sort of like an Art Deco version of the Running Man, I guess. But, you know, you have this man, I guess in Washington, D.C., just sort of walking away. To me, it kind of feels like Vince walking away. I don't know, like that's what I see when I see it. But B is a close second. I don't know. I like these clouds, and it's very ominous. What building is that, Mike? You're the geography guy. Do you know?
It looks like Dome of the Rock. I'm not entirely... the shape of it, no, it isn't. It does appear like, from a distance, it's the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, but
you think it's not. A mosque?
It's a different mosque, yeah, somewhere else.
A different mosque, yeah.
It has that shape, though.
And I'd have to say a close third. So gold is A, silver is B, and bronze would have to be E. I like this, like... Is it? It's kind of hard to see if it's just his hair, if it's like he's wearing a beret, but it's this guy looking off into like the skyline, and then there's someone like a helicopter searching. And I imagine like this is the CIA searching for Rickman, maybe, you know, when they get into Baghdad, or not Baghdad, Afghanistan. So yeah, those are my winners.
I like that. I'll pick up on the helicopter one, because I was surprised to see a helicopter in 4 of the covers. D, E, F, and G. I mean...
We don't get a helicopter scene at all in this book,
No, we don't. The only one I can think of is the QRF,
do.
the Quick Reaction Force, coming in and airlifting them at the vet, the shootout at the vet. And Mike Nash calls in, you know, special operations crew to get them out. I don't know. I was caught off guard seeing a helicopter so prevalent here. But the searchlight, you're right. 2 of them, E and G, have a searchlight over the city. It definitely looks like a Middle Eastern city. So yeah, the searching for Joe Rickman.
I'm guessing that's searching for Rickman.
Makes sense. Yeah, I actually like that interpretation. So I'm going to say that's my bronze as well, is cover E. And again, very isolated, standing man looking off into the distance. You got to wonder if that's how Vince feels, you know, writing this book. But I'm going to 100% agree with you on gold and silver. A and B. A is the classic. Loved your take on it. B is just nice colors. The blues.
Yeah, I really like that color scheme.
The color scheme of those blues is fantastic.
And the letters
pop out all in this bright white on this cloudy blue background. And whatever city that may be, you know, definitely puts you in a hunt through the Middle East. So I really like those ones. Although D, I'm going to give a shout out to D. It also has the Last Man right in the dead center, the silhouette of an individual looking off in the distance up at a chopper, you know, with, it looks like a sunset in the background with the bright yellows and orange glow. So also shout out for D, but I like these covers.
Also, H is interesting. It also has a helicopter. It's very I don't know. This instead of being like a fiction novel, this looks more of like, I don't know, some sort of autobiography about Afghanistan, right. or like some sort of history of the war in Afghanistan book cover. What language is that, Mike? Do you know?
That, and we've seen that format on H a little while for a few books now. That is Hungarian.
Oh,
Right.
okay. All right.
You said it looks like
I
movie
like
poster.
that.
I think this
it does like
this
a
series.
It looks like a movie
Yeah, it
poster.
does.
Yeah,
All right,
for
I
sure.
is pretty sweet, and again, that's I believe the Thai version, which was the one I liked
Okay.
for American Assassin, which had the bench, the man bleeding out on the bench. This one is dark and eerie and ominous. Just a man in an overcoat walking down an alley with smoke and red lights glowing. I is just a pretty cool cover. I have no idea what it says, being in some foreign language, but that's a good look too.
Yes.
You notice we didn't
right.
mention cover C because I'm not going to go negative on this podcast. I loved The Last Man.
And it's not that bad of a cover C. This is probably
It's
the
not terrible.
least
You're right.
bad cover C. Still has nothing to do with the book, so
Although it's
disappointed
good to
in that.
know though that the road does bend to the right, and you can only it's recommended that you only go 20 miles per hour. So at least we have that sign telling us, we can only drive 20 miles per hour. So safety first.
I'm going to say this could be the scene where Rap is coming into Pakistan, crossing the border.
They don't got signs like that in Pakistan. You kidding me? You kidding me? It's an arrow that the road does this squiggly turn. They'd have to have those every 5 feet. The road's doing a squiggly turn at 20 miles an hour. You kidding me?
You're right.
Get out of town.
You're right. All right. It's still, at least there's not a power line.
There's no power
I'm
lines.
just happy.
All right. That's all. Good book.
Well, that's our book. Great book.
Great chat with you, Chris. You had some really just powerful insights that I had not seen, and I bet a bunch of our listeners hadn't seen. So, damn, nice work on that one.
Thank you, sir. I try. Well, we hope you enjoyed our discussion of Consent to Kill. Consent to Kill? What am I talking about?
It's been a long pod.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our discussion of The Last Man. What a great book by Vince. And yeah, next time we come to you, we'll be giving you something. Don't quite know yet. Mike's going on vacation, so we have to figure that out. But it'll be
We'll
great.
work it out.
I promise you. I promise you. I don't know why I promise you. Never mind. Again, we have to thank our patrons. I don't know why I
promise
said
the
that.
folks our best effort.
There
We always
go.
give our best effort.
I promise you some A effort. Okay. All right. We have to thank our patrons, our special operator, Sherry F., our special agents, George, Matt, Don, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Find us on our website at MitchRapPod or using our Twitter handle at MitchRapPod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.
To a full life.
To a full life. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not affiliated with Vince Flynn, Kyle Mills, or Simon & Schuster, but thank you to them for bringing us the wonderful world of rap. And the music soundtrack is Guerrilla Tactics by Raphael Crooks.